Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS Winter. We have our decider match coming on up next in our European group. My name is Fear Dragon. I am now at the desk with Zombie Grub. Yep, we are going to see a rematch, and this is exactly Caster Duo, the Cast the first series as well.
Yeah, we had that happen yesterday too. It's deja vu.
It's quite wonderful. Because then, of course, we get to talk even more and kind of elongate the conversation from earlier on to this series, where I think it was a close series. We had one game where souL was playing super duper well. You were talking about the role reversal in game number 3. Game number 2, a little bit different. I guess that was a little bit more one-sided.
Yeah, that was, but it was overall a pretty sick series.
Yeah, it was a great series.
And I was glad I was right that they're just like evenly matched as well.
I have no idea who's going to win this. I don't even have a prediction, actually.
I feel like DnS played, you know, because he got 2 wins instead of 1. But like it seemed more stable. You know what I mean? Like souL had to do some kind of aggressive things to find those openings and that can really turn around.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what happened in the games that he lost. So for me, I'm kind of feeling this for DnS to make it through. But souL does have those highlight moments where his micro and his decision making does really pay off. So.
Okay, well, we're going to find out what happens. We're moving on to, guess what, Cyber Forest. Did you guys think we got this map enough? Because I sure didn't. Game number 1 loads on up. Let's jump and introduce the players as we start the top left hand corner of the map. There we go. Top of the blue Terran player. He is souL, Team Iron Chain.
And in the bottom right, the victor, last time they met, it is the Red Protoss Cascades DnS.
Cascade, a appropriate name to describe those more interesting games, game number 1, game number 3, because it was about securing an early lead and then just cascading that into a victory much later on in the game.
You know, I knew that's how you're going to use it, but I'm like, is that actually the proper verb?
I think that is. To cascade?
To cascade something. There's this cascading waterfall, but I don't think it's...
Well, you're just adding an ing to change the tense of the verb.
You never use it really in that context, though. Like, to cascade something. You know, he could be right, though. You
cascade, I cascade, he, she cascades.
He,
Wumbo.
Dude, she's a dude.
Wumboing. Wumbo.
Turned it upside down for Wumbo. SpongeBob memes. I mean, just regular memes. Okay, so nothing proxy-wise, which I guess we didn't really kind of highlight in that last series that they played, which is that souL did not do a ton of, well, like early game proxies, right? Or any, right? He proxied a starport, I suppose. But, you know,
a bit later on.
And like, you know, that, plus there wasn't a lot of terribly aggressive tank pushes. There were tanks. There were pushes.
I think Terran players are learning that Protoss players are quite prepared for those.
Yeah, but if you do them really, really, really well, then even like, because like we saw that yesterday with Drogo, remember how he like charged, just broke the back of the tank push, but then died to Banshees anyways. So it's like, can still work, but it is something where like perhaps it just is not as successful versus the Protoss that we've seen, and souL isn't willing to test it. So souL a lot more about just getting his feet underneath them and then really piling on the pressure in a more kind of standard TVP mid game.
Kind of interesting to see the pylon for DnS on the low ground in the position where it normally is there to block off the Reaper, but then he goes for all the stuff in the main base, so Reaper actually is not going to be blocked off at all.
No, last time it didn't work, so.
Yeah. Well, you need the 2 buildings there, right? And it's spaced out his gateway a little too far north.
That's what I thought the problem was. Yeah. It was like up here, but Protoss, what else would it even mean?
Well, either way, he's pushing back the Reaper with the Adept. The Reaper tries to make his way forward, but of course it is a Stargate follow-up over here. Ooh!
That was clutch.
Nice juke and jive there. souL keeping his Reaper alive.
That was
a great job with that last time also.
Yeah, but the Adept shading back to catch the Reaper.
That was really nice.
That almost worked out perfectly. Almost.
Back and forth micro. Oracle first going to be coming on out. There is a safety cyclone coming out for souL though, so he should be prepared. He has all the tools he needs to make sure that this Oracle doesn't get too much damage done. And I also want to note the Tech Lab going up on top of that starport.
Reaper is going to see the Oracle, so doesn't really need to see the Stargate. I guess there's not even a chance that was hallucination. Like but he confirms everything. So that is going to be Stargate versus what was going to be a Banshee opener. He started it for like a second habit from what he was planning on building, and then was like, nope. No, just defend. So Viking's going to pop out, help ward off the Oracle. And then, I mean, if there are Phoenixes, if DNS... Because that's the thing. DNS didn't realize it was Banshees, but he was already preparing against them. Remember we noted that. So he could do that again here and kind of waste, you know, production into that. I don't think would help out very much otherwise with 2 Oracles, 2 Phoenix.
I wonder if actually this just has to do a lot with DNS and souL playing a lot against each other, not just in tournaments, but they're also both active players on the ladder. So I wonder if this is just what DNS has been seeing souL do most of his games. He's like, you know, I know you like to do this. I'm just going to prepare for it in advance in these games.
Maybe. Had enough energy to tap the CV, at least, so lay in the 3rd CC, but more importantly, a scout on the 3rd CC.
Yep. And of course, we do have a Raven getting started there rather than the Banshee. So Ravens can still be very useful, especially considering DNS really seems to have loved going for the fast 2 Colossus play. And I remember there was that fun period of time where Terran players discovered the interference matrix from the Raven. They're like, you know what? I can just disable 2-3 Colossus, and then I just kill you with an SCV pull. I actually missed that push a little bit.
You make us sound like, you know, you gave us a toy box, and you're like, the square goes in the square hole.
You did get a new spell. That is exactly, it's not even Terran. This is how everyone feels when they get a new toy.
No, it's true. The Raven was kind of weird, though, because the Raven was like, you know, they're like, here's all these new things we gave you, and the Terrans were like, but like Ravens, like, I don't want to make those. Like, and then now it's always made. Anyways, but you're right. They can help. Big units that you rely on suddenly out of the equation. Boom, suddenly it's an easy win. But we don't have Colossus.
No.
Like, we really have a change up here. They're both reacting to each other, probably with consideration of the first series of Mind as well. So we have Twilight Forge after that Stargate, so Blink, and then into Colossus, but he'll have a pretty strong ground army, you know, to support it.
Yeah, as opposed to the previous series where DNS was getting up to his 1st and 2nd Colossus on roughly 5 to 8 gateway units. It was much, much faster than this time. 6 gateway is going to be finished before the robotic space finishes up. So absolutely, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Going up to 8 gateways now.
Yeah, more like that, I guess, final game in their series.
That's true.
Yeah. But souL is, I mean, they both should be happy really with how this has gone down. No severe losses. The Oracle's still alive. DNS didn't overmake Stargate production when he didn't need it. And now it's just, it's finally, I mean, is this actually going to be a push? I don't think so. Oh, wait, there are 2 medevacs on the way, so I guess he will try and find something to do with it.
He also hasn't established his 3rd. Okay, now he's floating out his 3rd base. I was going to say, going to go for the push out. It makes sense to try and also set up that 3rd base behind the push. Use your aggression as a defensive way to position yourself, but this is going to be a tough position to move up the ramp with the force fields here. Anti-armor missile hits the entire army nearly here for DNS, but it's still up a ramp against a bunch of sentries. It's not a super comfortable position. He's going to stim forward as he sees the armies on the low ground, but he still gets forced out by the ramp.
Okay, Blink is available, so dodge that one, Widow Mine. These 2 could still be a potential problem. They try and move forward, and they are going to burrow.
Yeah, not getting focus fire down there.
Uh-oh.
But Blink comes off a cooldown, dodges out of the way of one of those Widow Mine shots. Colossus pops out, and now suddenly this push is a lot harder to make work.
Yeah, it was like that Ultra's popping from an egg. Like, that is very, very, very important. He was running out of those support units for the Stalkers, and Stalkers themselves cannot take on those Marauders.
Man, great Blink control here from DNS, reacting to each one of these Widow Mines so quickly.
Yeah, but he has had to use Blink on all of his Stalkers against Widow Mine shots.
That is true.
Like, actually singular Widow Mine shots. So there's a lot of, like, micro, otherwise offensive blinks forward, or, you know, blinking one back at a time. Just, I mean, small things to consider, because this game it's not determined by this push. The game does go on, despite DNS maybe taking more losses than, like, you know, perfectly necessary if he was playing perfect game.
Yeah, so far I really like DNS's defensive position. He's been able to set up his 3rd a lot faster. I think only now is souL getting some basic mining at his own 3rd base. And also the medevacs are very low on energy for souL because he kept stimming forward, because he kept poking, trying to get some damage done. He lost most of the Widow Mines that he was doing the push with. So I do feel like his offensive capabilities are limited for a bit now.
Okay, so remember that problem in the first game of the last series without the scouting? So he lost his sentries, so no hallucination.
Okay.
He lost his observers and can't rebuild them because he's building Colossus. and his Oracle. So he has a Phoenix.
Wait, did he lose his sentries?
He did.
Oh, okay. He remade them then, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So he is going to try and send Lucent and Phoenix out, but he has maybe like not as consistent scouting as he would want, especially because he opened up with a Stargate and like easy peasy Oracle. But he lost both of those and isn't going to replace them. So hopefully that doesn't. I mean, it's a later game. He's not going to be surprised, hopefully in a devastating way. And this Phoenix even actually scouts the double medevac drop, so it did its job.
Yeah. That is going to be pretty tough for souL. souL is pushing in from the north side. He kills off, I think, a pylon or something over there that was used to scout. Maybe a stalker that was poking forward. Widowmine got the shot on some zealots. Can't blink out of those, can ya?
You're supposed to be the Protoss here, for sure.
I can root for both sides.
All right.
Okay, we do have more stuff on the way, though. With a fusion core being added on, we know that souL would love to get up to that high Liberator count. Makes him a very difficult Terran player to break, especially since, well, the Stargate, I guess, of course, does exist this game, so it's a little bit easier to move up to those Tempests. It is a quicker transition for DnS, but if souL can get up to a large number of Liberators nice and early on, it's still difficult to deal with. Ooh, kill, not a cancel.
Yeah, DnS, I mean, he's trying to spread out units and pylons and, like, kudos, but he's still missing some of the pathways. Yeah, Oracles hopefully aren't going to be the deciding point of this game. I don't think so. DnS still has a huge army despite losing 400 minerals straight up, and the Liberator count is not really high enough to help against the Colossus right now.
Yeah, this is getting pretty scary right now for souL, and his only 2 medevacs to heal up this army every time they stim. A counterattack force trying to get some damage on, but there's a lot of Stalkers back at home. The Stalkers,
there we go.
There's the interference matrix on those Colossus, but I think that the Gateway force may be close to being enough already. The Colossus is starting to move a little too far forward, but there it is. Sop it up bio versus these Colossus. They are not going to be able to last long. A Zealot reinforcing Warpin. And souL is broken. DnS takes the first game.
Yeah, that Raven, if it was there faster, might have been the big difference.
If you had been able to disable those Colossus a little bit sooner on, absolutely. And he only got the disable off on 2 of those Colossus. I don't know if he had already used up some of the energy on the anti-armor missile earlier on or something. But yeah, not being able to get the interference matrix off on the 3rd Colossus, that also kind of hurt. It just,
yeah.
But I also feel like at that point, it didn't seem like souL actually had enough units there to make that work.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't really, nothing really happened that would like throw off his groove, that he wouldn't like, you know, be able to play a straight up game. But I think it was a combination of maybe a little late to Liberators because he went for double, like he went for a 2nd starport and fusion core, as opposed to just going right into Liberators from the get-go. And his Raven was late, and he was all types of clumped up as well.
Yeah.
You know, the concave versus the Colossus.
Yeah,
so.
It's tough. It was more just stim and run back away from the Colossus that are scary beams of lasery death and retreat back. Maybe I can get up some Liberators, and not quite enough.
Yeah.
I like the fact that souL, during that, had the mindset to try and still counterattack with the Bioforest, but the fact that there were still a bunch of Stalkers, it was not even just, we just warped in Stalkers as the Bio units were moving up the ramp and you react to it. The Stalkers are already there. They were there to intercept those bio units and totally shut that down.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't even say like if he only had that much bio in the defense, like, you know, or I was gonna say Drogo. DnS also had units apart from that main attack. So pretty standard, straightforward game, but souL losing out in the macro sense, being a little undefended against the Colossus. Scary beams, and not quite finding the holes in DnS's play that he was able to last time he played in that map. And it's too bad, too, because DnS, I mean, maybe there's a game where his lack of oracles and observers would have hurt him. That wasn't it.
Yeah. We'll see if things are going to turn around as we go into game number 2, starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. 1 game away from moving on to the next group stage. He is DnS, Team Cascade.
The top left, as the blue Terran for Iron Chain, he is souL.
Like Team Iron Form.
Yes, we are back on that.
We are back on that. We had to repeat the last series, so.
Yes, thank you.
Ooh, okay, so I do want to note that in the last game as well, DnS was scouting around for all those early proxies. So as much as we've been talking about how there haven't been proxies, DnS has been very adamant about making sure that is the case.
Yes, yeah, he did this last time as well. So it's pretty darn worth it. Your probe still gets there to harass the... It does still get there for harass the... Yeah, it does. And then it can always be hidden later to harass the SCV build in the command center.
Yeah. Well, of course, you don't really... Sometimes the SCV can still just kind of finish out the command center if you spend a little too long scouting for the proxies, but he gets there in time, is going to force this SCV off of building that for a split second, delays the barracks for a few seconds.
Yeah, and to be, fair, if barracks is over here, he's just screwed.
Yes.
So, but no, it's actually a really well-timed scout regardless, and it does occasionally, proxies are in the bottom left, delay the command center as much as possible to go for some egg score, but not like chronoing any zealot forward, trying to delay that any further. See if he hides the probe. So going for that Reaper, which, the openers weren't really a problem. The Stargate didn't do damage, and, well, I suppose souL didn't really... He didn't have an opener that caused anything to happen. He didn't go for a Widowmine drop, right? He didn't do, like, any Liberator harassment. It was just a fast third.
Yeah. Interesting to see where things go from there. As we end up seeing the Reaper make its way across the map, I think the Adept is still staying back at home. So he should have that in position to help defend and push back the Reaper, preventing it from getting too much more information. Hasn't actually thrown down any additional tech just yet. And there it is, actually, Stargate starting on up.
It's not going to be able to see that now, but Kairos Junction should be a situation, a map where the Reaper can get the scout. Let's make sure the Adept isn't going to go across the map, but if he's getting a Hellion with these Marines, then it wouldn't even be a problem regardless. Starport is coming down a little bit farther back, so no proxy this time. I think this was the map that he proxied on. I think it was like, oh no, actually no, it wasn't. It was a different map, but I can't remember which one. But we know he's capable of it, even with the 1-Rax expand.
Adept is actually going to shade its way forward, and ooh, the wall is down, so he gets a scout out. Doesn't actually, I mean, the kind of thing that you're usually looking for is if the Starport is going to have a tech lab or a reactor at that point, right?
Yeah, there are more important things to scout, like with the timing that he had, but it's also just, this could have been a 2-1-1. This could have been a 3-Rax, although I know they aren't done anymore. So it's not supposed to be let in.
Okay. Well, Phoenix is going to be following up from that Stargate.
Yeah, he went Phoenix first.
I wonder if he's actually just going to if he's just going to go straight up into Phoenix. A lot of Pros players have been enjoying that playstyle, and there is a second Phoenix queued up.
Good call. That's what he's going to do. Wait, that's something we haven't seen, right? Is the more Phoenix Colossus. Maybe don't do all Phoenix Colossus like 4 years ago, but
yeah. What do you feel is the comfortable number of Phoenix to stop at when you go for this sort of style?
That's a good question. As I said, I don't really see it too much. I've actually been seeing some Protoss players, so I don't know what the numbers of Phoenix are. I want to say 8. But more importantly, they even they just push past in a charge and really heavily delay blink, even as their Phoenix count gets killed. And it's like, ooh, we don't know about drops, but they can make it work.
Yeah, and I ask you that because it's been interesting. I've seen a lot of players with different answers because I've seen some players say, yeah, 5 or 6 is a pretty comfortable number. It's enough to push back medevac drops, enough to pick up a couple of workers here and there, but you have to be careful of them. And I've seen some Protoss players go a little bit crazy and say, like, yeah, I'm going to get 14 of them. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that's intense. That's hard shutting down any drops and also getting a lot of run-bys, dealing with Vikings, so your Colossus just don't die.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a fun, interesting experience to see how different Protoss players play this out. But it looks like 3 Phoenix is going to be the answer for DnS.
Number we never guessed. Yeah, so, I mean, the Oracle doesn't really do any damage. You don't expect that versus Terran. And I was going to say, I feel like he might just add on at least 2 more.
Yeah.
He does kind of go back into it, but it's not the emphasis. He isn't planning on shock and all, just so many Phoenix kills. But they do the scouting if they're active that an Oracle will be doing anyways.
That's a fresh mule. That's a nice pickup.
It is indeed. What if they die? Oops. I think he... Oh, you really? Okay. I don't think he accounted for the Cyclone.
Yeah, always a little bit frustrating. Robotics Bay on the way back at home alongside Resonating Waves.
That's not what I was expecting. I was definitely expecting charge.
Yeah, usually you end up going for charge to complement the Phoenix Colossus move. He still looks like he's probably going to go for Colossus.
Yes.
It would be new to me if we ended up seeing Phoenix Disruptor. That is very micro-intensive.
With the depths.
With the depths.
And it's like, I don't know if it's going to work.
At first I shade onto them, then I pick up their tanks so they won't get hit by the disruptors, and then I disrupt for my own adepts.
Yes, that's the
Oh, loses another Phoenix there. Takes a lot of damage on another one. souL has been... I like the way that souL is just saying, I can still put pressure on. I just don't load up my units in the medevacs and I walk across the map instead.
It might just do a lot of damage, is that? Okay, there we go. A couple more weapons. And the force fields can buy a little more time as well, but the adepts do not have their upgrades, and now souL is tuned into the fact that it might be an adept-based build.
And Colossus are very far away. That was the big power play move that DnS was kind of waiting for over here. Sentry's starting to get killed off. The Bioforce is starting to get whittled down. It's also sitting very low in hit points, all in the red, and the yellow, and the orange, and it looks like DnS is able to push this back for now at least.
Yeah, souL slaps down his 3rd CC and should not be actually accounted for that or run by or anything like that. That should be able to complete, as DnS has to really focus on the defense. That was a very scary moment there, and even with one Colossus that feels a little bit nicer, it's still a little scary. You lost your Phoenix count, so even if it's able to scout the medevacs, he's currently trying to rebuild it so he can actually deal with them, so it forces a recall.
Yeah, that is nice, and that maybe opens up an opportunity over here at the 3rd base, but there's not that many units there for souL, and plenty of adepts and sentries there for DnS, so it's going to be a tough break. DnS mostly just staying back on the defensive, though, and that does give souL that opportunity, like you said, let that 3rd base finish up to try and find...
Oh,
ooh, great Colossus!
Yeah, Unomine even gets a splash in the rest of the unit, so it pops the barrier of the Immortal, and the Bio could try and take it on. There's a couple more reinforcements. And the army from the 3rd base actually needs to get over here.
Yeah, the rest of the army that was sitting by the 3rd base for souL ends up moving down to the natural. So now DnS regroups his whole army. The Phoenix narrowly dodging a Widowmine shot over there, but the Adepts still take some damage off their shields.
This gets... I want to say it's a little weird. I feel like, just like personally, so this is my own bias for sure, and then, you know, we don't see the style that DnS is throwing at us that much, but Adepts just seem easy to deal with in charge lots. You know what I mean? Like, you're able to run away with them where charge can actually chase
Definitely
you.
easier to kite, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, you're not able to get to that really solid number of adepts either.
Oh,
so
sniping +2 weapons. That is very nice.
yeah. A couple units were in the main base, so this isn't a freebie drop, but it is still going to be able to do more damage just because I think the qualities of the armies really aren't that different.
Yeah, absolutely. The Phoenix are starting to pick away at some of these medevacs, but one of the Phoenix goes down. 2nd Phoenix likely not going to be long for this world. And we end up seeing medevacs pick on up and just getting out of there because there's not that many Phoenixes. Even another force moving into the top side. I think that there was a Zealot run by in the natural expansion, or sorry, an Adept run by. Of course, we have Resonant Glaive Adepts. Trying to get some damage done. They kill off a few workers, but that is going to get cleaned up.
You know, I mean, DnS ended up defending that main base, you know, with only trading the army out. He still has Colossus being built, so it's not like he was torn apart before we can get to a decent number, but souL really dropped down in supply after all that. I think maybe, I mean, there was some missed macro for sure, but now preparing to go into the Liberators here, it's no longer about the mass amount of bio, and well, initially I thought DnS might be toppled because his adept count didn't look convincing. Now it's different. Now it's, you know, it's 45 seconds difference, and he has twice as many adepts, and he has a Stogs with his army as well with Blink. Although he doesn't have that +2, he actually just starts +1 armor.
Yeah, kind of interesting there to go for the armor upgrade, so +2 weapons, especially if you have the Colossus out. And he actually did cancel his 3rd Colossus and opts to go for the Warpism. So he wants to make a push out, it seems like, off of the 2 Colossus. But there's the 3 Liberators on the way at a time. I know you were talking about how at a certain point you just have enough Colossus that you can just still push through. I don't think 2 Colossus is usually going to be that number, and he's going to be up to 5 Liberators by the time this hits, I think.
Yeah, this is... It's less Colossus than that last game.
Killing a lot of workers with these Adepts, to be fair, I guess.
Yes, he is. Like, there's really tearing souL apart. He's no longer in position to even try and defend this, so this is ultimately still... If this was army to army, maybe it's different, but this is just a net win for DnS.
souL's not even actually aggressively pushing into this or trying to defend his 3rd. And he loses a bunch of his medevacs on the other side of the map. There is a medevac doing some damage by the 3rd, but it's all just denied mining time. He's only killed 3 workers. He's lost 31.
Losing that 3rd CC might just be it. That was definitely not supposed to happen. If souL had been prepared with his Liberators in position, I'm not sure DnS would have commenced the attack, or certainly would have traded out differently. Instead, it's souL, I guess, technically still going to 3 CCs. He's also lost all of his workers.
It's tough because, you know what, if he had just lost his workers, I think I would still give him a shot in this game because he would still have his army. But he also lost all the drops on the other side of the map. He lost those medevacs. And now he's actually starting to lose a lot of his bio forces because the Liberators weren't sieged up. He sieges up over here, but now he's just defending his natural. And guess what? That third base that he was trying to reestablish? Nuh-uh. Not going to happen.
Yeah, he has to cancel it. He let it finish and lifted it without all these stalkers. This looks like it's going to be the end of souL. His army is...
main base also. There's a warp prison which worked in a lot of adepts.
Yeah, they almost came to the natural, but nope, that's what their main army is.
Yep. Stalkers pulling forward, taking care of the Liberators. DnS already sitting up 1-0, goes up 2-0, and advances out of the group.
I mean, at least I was right about my DnS call, but like, I did not expect it to be such a slapdown 2-0.
Yeah. It is a little bit unfortunate. I felt like game 1, souL was still playing pretty well, but DnS was able to find those little edges there. Game number 2, it really felt like DnS was just slapping souL down, though.
Yeah, and I do wonder exactly, like, the trades didn't seem like they were so terrible to find ourselves in a position where that last fight was so one-sided. That had more to do with, like, first the trades weren't as good as souL wanted, and then the Colossus did find him out of position, and then his drops didn't do damage, and it all came together to be what looked like to be a poor game.
No, I'm totally with you. I mean, you remember, souL was getting some damage done. He found a free Colossus. The drops were finding things that he could put the pressure on with. But then as we finally started to come to a close with all the aggression, we look back and souL's third base was a lot later. And like you said, he was down in supplies. So DnS, during all the aggression, he'd be able to keep up with all the macro and everything, doing a great job, and secures himself a well-earned spot in the next group stage.
Yeah, so congratulations to DnS. Fortunately, our Terrans don't make it out.
Yeah, souL does get knocked out. But guys, we'll take a look at, of course, the groups to see how everything is shaping up here in, of course, WCS Winter's European Group, Group E, I believe. As we end up seeing at the end of the day, Group F. Raynor advances on out of his group 2-0. And of course, DnS going to be following right behind at 2-1. souL unfortunately getting knocked out as a narrow series at the end. And Marine Lord putting up a good fight in that TvT. Had a very fun TvT, but unfortunately does get knocked out.
Yeah, that Marine Lord almost felt like off, actually. If you watch some of his other games from like the qualifiers or some other tournaments, I think he would look a little bit stronger on another day. But yeah, getting 0-2'd, well, in series.
Yeah. Everyone has those days, and unfortunately, in the groups, we do play them, all the games out for a group in one day. So if you have a bad day, that's kind of the way that things go. But guys, we will go ahead and recap, I think, for you guys, the group again, as we look at the schedule, and relive some of the great games that happened today. We're talking a little bit about some of those Marine Lord games. I have to say that first series, again, I gave it to Marine Lord because, you know what, Raynor's really good. If you ever want to just see a really good Zerg player, go watch Raynor's games. And of course, DnS versus souL. The first series, I would say, was a lot closer and also a bit more action-packed and exciting. Marine Lord, of course, also falling to souL. And then we had Raynor versus souL, where Raynor played really, really well. And of course, that last series. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So some good series. Yeah. Some kind of one-sided series. Raynor just proving that he is. I mean, I think everyone seems to have, like, me included, like, okay, what if they weren't practicing during the break and we haven't had a big tournament? So what if it's different? And then it's like, oh, it's not different. It's not. Raynor's gonna win.
Raynor is really, really good, guys.
Yep.
Now, of course, if you are done with the European part of the broadcast, but you're still interested in more StarCraft, well, let me tell you, we have got a treat for you. The Americas broadcast is coming on up. This group is amazing. I have been looking forward to this group for weeks. It is just going to be an absolute meme fest, just craziness all around. We got Masa, the master of proxies, who has, oddly enough, always looked better in StarCraft when he's playing less StarCraft. And let me tell you, he has not been playing a lot of StarCraft lately, which gets me excited about him. Jon Snow, a really solid Zerg player, very well-rounded, consistent player. You got Mio Micah, the craziest player that I can actually think of, even crazier than Haas as a Zerg player, which is insane. And we got Estrella, who I think is the most underrated NA player around. Guys, this is going to be a great group.
Yeah, he's kind of, in my mind, Estrella's almost like the Marine Lord of the group for NA, because he's a player that was kind of coming up in the past. Maybe took a break, just wasn't, as prominent, and then he's back, and he's looking really good again. Yeah, and he's got some wacky builds also to throw out. So, ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. You are watching WCS Winter, and soon to be the Americas segment. We'll see you soon.